Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions, and this week my first question comes from Lady Tremere 85, who says, I live with my mother due to economics. Part-time job and student loans to pay back don't make for a good time to live by myself. And my parents divorced not quite a year ago over his affair. Since then, I've quietly come out to my mother as an atheist, and she's been pretty alright with it. We've had a few discussions about religion, but most of the time we both leave it be. She has stopped going to church, given that most members at their shared church turned a blind eye to my dad's infidelity. My dad, however, is a different story. He wasn't baptized until I was almost 4 years old and is somewhat fervently religious. He was also shocked when I mentioned that Billy Joel is an atheist, which I think is awesome. I'm considering telling him of my own thoughts of disbelief, but that might cause more trouble than it's worth. Thoughts? My thought is that you should tell him. But you have to decide what's more important to you. I mean, for me personally, I see no reason to hide things about myself. I mean, I don't make it a point when I talk to my parents or my wife's family who are very religious. I don't make it a point to interject my atheism into every conversation we have or to criticize their religion every time it comes up or anything like that. I'm pretty laid back about it, but at the same time, I don't hide it. I don't pretend that I am a Christian for their sake. And I think that sort of approach is a good one. You know, let people know who you are, where you stand, what your thoughts are, what your beliefs are, or non-beliefs, what your opinion is on their beliefs, however you want to phrase that. But also let them know that this doesn't mean that every time somebody brings up something that happened at church, or every time somebody brings up a religious teaching or a Christian belief or whatever, that it's not automatically going to incite an argument if you happen to be around. You know, that's not the way it works. That's not the way it has to work. You can inform your parents, you can inform your dad of who you are, of what you believe, and still have an amicable relationship where every conversation doesn't revolve around fighting about religion and atheism. Assuming that your dad is a reasonable person and assuming that you and your dad have a pretty decent relationship, which I don't know. Hopefully you do, maybe you don't. But yeah, my instinct, my thought, my general suggestion would be to tell him. And I mean, that's based mostly on just what I would do and what I have done. You know, I try not to be overbearing about my atheism, but I certainly make no attempt to hide it. Finite Atticus. Hey Steve, what is your favorite unintentionally funny scene in a movie? I have several, like the scene in Indiana Jones' Raiders of the Lost Ark when the evil Nazi's face melts off, or the scene in American Beauty when the mother continuously slaps herself for not being able to sell a house. I don't know what it is, but I can't stop guffawing at scenes like that. Also, am I a bad person for that? If you're a bad person for that, then I'm a terrible fucking person for the one I'm about to talk about. By far, my favorite unintentionally funny movie scene has got to be the scene at the end of First Blood, the first Rambo movie, when Rambo is talking to his former colonel and he just completely loses it. Like, it starts out with him, pointing at him and yelling, "It wasn't my war! You asked me, I didn't ask you!" And then it just kind of devolves from there. He just disintegrates into this quivering mass of tears and, barely coherent speech where he's remembering when his buddy back in Vietnam was killed by an improvised explosive. He's like, I can't find your legs. And my friend is all over me. And it's supposed to be like this devastating scene, this really just serious, devastating scene of this mistreated war veteran, just opening up finally and bearing his soul and putting everything that's been haunting him on the table. And it just is hilarious to me. It's just so goddamn funny, I can't stand it. I can't watch that scene without laughing. And obviously I can't talk about it without being just incredibly amused by it. McFly88, hey yo, Big Stevie, cool. There's this girl at work I've been conversing, harmlessly harassing, flirting with, and these behaviors have been getting mutual. Seems like we have similar personalities, interests, and I'm on the verge of asking her to grab a drink after work. By the way, I've never tried to mix dating and work, so this is big. But here's the dilemma. I know she and her family, which are tight as a knot, are deeply Christian. She doesn't know I'm an atheistic leaning agnostic, so if I did suck it up and get her to grab an overpriced Starbucks cafe latte, gas station Colombian would suffice for me, what would you suggest as an icebreaker on the subject? To be completely honest, I feel 100% chicken shittish about it. Oh boy, you're really asking the wrong dude. Dating is one of the things I was the worst at in my life, and one of the things I hated more than anything else. I was terrible at it. I was always uncomfortable and nervous and awkward, and I absolutely hated it. I'm not the person to ask for advice about this. You say that the two of you have gotten to know each other at work. Is it possible you could bring it up at work before you ask her out, before you find yourself on the date? I mean, it sounds like from your question that you guys get along well, and you seem like you like each other. Is there some way during a break, or as you're coming in or you're leaving for the day, or whenever you guys interact? I mean, maybe you could bring it up before you find yourself in the date situation, which would be a much more anxious, high pressure scenario. I don't know. That would be my advice. If you're worried about it and you want to put it out there and bring it up to her so that she knows that you're not religious while she very much is, try to get it out there before the date. See how she responds. Give her some time to process it. Let her decide if she still likes you after she finds out what a heathen you are, and then ask her out. Here's one from Lady Mizra. Dear Steve, I think you got a question similar to this before, but here it goes anyway. I'm an atheist, and my mother is in the hospital and is very sick. I'm unsure of whether or not she's going to make it, and right now I'm in the midst of a lot of emotions: grief, anger, guilt, depression, and everything in between. I feel alone, though, being the only atheist in my family, the only atheist my mother even knows, so the only atheist in the midst of this whole situation. I find myself confused as to what I'm supposed to do. I know I've been told what a Christian is supposed to do, pray, but I'm not a Christian, and I don't think that would do any good. Not that I care if other people pray. I appreciate that they are thinking of her, at least. For a moment, I even felt frustrated that there wasn't a God I could be angry at for letting this happen, as crazy as that sounds. But then again, I'm not in the most sane of mental states right now. I guess what I'm asking is, what can I do? Where can I turn to for support from my own kind? It gets lonely and frustrating when you hear God rhetoric from most people about these situations. Well, first of all, I'm very sorry to hear that you're going through this. I'm sorry that your mother isn't well. As for where you can turn to find comfort from other atheists, I mean, there are atheists, there are online atheist communities. There are people maybe who are watching this video who would be willing to talk with you and let you get some things off your chest and try to make sense of some of this. You can always write me. You can always talk to me. You can send me a private message or find me on Facebook or email me. I'd be happy to read and respond to whatever you wanted to talk to me about. If you're looking for support or for a sounding board or whatever from a fellow atheist, I would be happy to provide that for you as best as I can. I mean, I'm not I'm not the greatest grief counselor in the world, I fear, but if you want to talk to somebody who shares your atheism about this, I would be happy for you to do that with me. But you could also talk to your family, talk to your friends who are surrounding your mother, the people who come at it from a more religious perspective. But just focus on the things that you have in common with them. Focus on what makes you the same as them, not what makes you different. You don't share their religion. You don't get anything from praying. You're bothered by the God talk and the afterlife talk and the religion, and it all means something, and it's all part of God's plan. And one day her pain will be over and she'll be in a better place. Believe me, I completely understand how all that stuff sounds, and I feel the same way about it as you do. It's no comfort to me at all, and actually, if I hear it at the wrong time, it kind of makes me angry. I find it really, really offensive. But that's not the only part of you. That's not the only thing that links you or separates you from your family and your friends. And maybe in a time of grief, in a time of need, in a time of sadness, you can connect with them on other levels. The fact that you don't share their religion or that they don't share your lack of religion doesn't mean that you can't come together and be there for each other in a time like this. It would be really nice, and I hope that you can find a way to do that, because the best support system that you have is the people around you who are also feeling the same way, who are grieving for your mother, who are worried about her, who are upset about the prospect of losing her just the same as you are. So I would look into that. I would not completely give up on finding solace and comfort in your fellow family members and your friends. But like I said a minute ago, if you do feel like you need to talk to a fellow atheist about it, please bend my ear. I'd be happy to listen to you. And I'm sure that there are lots of other atheists who are watching this video who would be happy to do the same. Jesse Steck, Steve, I'm majoring in American Sign Language, and I was wondering if you knew anything about deaf culture. In my experience, no other language gets as much disrespect as ASL does. If you do a simple YouTube search, there are plenty of people out there claiming that they can teach ASL, yet know nothing more than basic signs. This is equivalent to someone knowing nothing more than muy caliente and claiming to be a Spanish teacher. I've studied languages in the past, and in my experience, there is no other language that is so trivialized as ASL. Do you have any thoughts on this? I don't know ASL myself, and I don't have a lot of firsthand experience with deaf culture. I've never been close friends with a deaf person or with a person who signed, so I can't speak a lot from experience. I remember there was a classmate of mine in college who was deaf and communicated through signing, and actually had an interpreter who would come in and sit in the front of the class for him and would sign what the teacher was lecturing about, and would also interpret what we said in class. Would basically just interpret the entire class, anything spoken in the class, through sign. And I thought it was really cool. I'd never had a lot of firsthand experience like watching someone actually sign, in real time. And I was really impressed. And since then, I've seen deaf people, because obviously the signing interpreter was not deaf herself, but I've seen people who are deaf and who have never been able to speak verbally, and who communicate 100% through their signing. And I was amazed the first time I saw it, and I still sort of am amazed, because it's so alien to me. At how much inflection and emotion and purpose and intention that people can imbue their signing. When someone is really agitated and really angry and wants to put a lot of emphasis in his or her words and the way they can sign it, with a lot of very strong, firm motions and slapping their hands together, and just, it's just amazing to me. It's so impressive, and it's a beautiful language, even though I don't understand it literally. I mean, I don't know the signs. I can't sit there and watch and tell what someone is saying without having it interpreted for me or subtitled or whatever. But it's a beautiful language, and I didn't know that it was as trivialized and disrespected as you say. I wasn't familiar with that. I didn't know that was going on. But if that's true, that's a real shame, because, as I say, in my limited experience with American Sign Language, it's a really, really beautiful language. Dr. Themo, I've seen a number of comic book movies and TV shows, but in my 28 years, I've never cracked open a comic book proper. Which series/book do you think I ought to start on for either Marvel or DC? I've heard The Killing Joke is really good. Oh man, you've made it this far. Why do you want to do this to yourself? You've made it to 28 without opening a comic book. Just leave well enough alone. Just go, run, frolic in the field. Live a normal life. Don't read. Don't start reading comic books, for God's sakes. Don't start reading superhero comics, especially Marvel and DC. No. You're throwing your life away. If they got to you young, if they got to you when you were like 9 or 10 years old, or when you were a teenager and you were searching like for something to hold on to in an uncertain world, when you were growing and changing in ways you didn't understand, and you latched onto comic books as like your anchor, I can understand that. Hey, I've been there myself. But if you've made it to 28 without having to do that, just keep on walking, man. You stop, you pause at the window of the comic book store, you look inside, you're a little curious. Just keep walking. Just keep walking. Believe me, you'll be a happier person. Although if you do decide to go inside, yeah, Killing Joke is a good one. Is a good way to start Batman. Batman Year One is also excellent. Superman for All Seasons I really like, and All Star Superman is good. There were a couple of Alan Moore written Superman stories from the '80s. Whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, I think it's called. It was sort of the last Silver Age Superman story before they rebooted. What else? For the Man Who Has Everything, that's a good Superman story. And there are a lot of sort of one-shot stories. For Batman, I really like the Ra's al Ghul stories, the original Ra's al Ghul stories by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams from the '70s, which you can find in collected volumes pretty easily. There's a paperback collecting all of those stories. They're really excellent and a really good way to sort of get into Batman, especially some classic Batman from the '70s. As for Marvel has done an awesome job of collecting their early comics from the '60s in easy to read, affordable sort of newsprint black and white omnibus volumes. And DC's been doing the same thing too, but the Marvel ones have been around for years. And to me, there are no better Marvel comics than like the early Amazing Spider-Mans, like from the beginning of that run, you know. Just start at the beginning and just go, because those original Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and then after Ditko left, there was John Romita, and those are just some of the best superhero comics you'll ever read. Oh, and Batman Black and White. Batman Black and White is another really, really great gateway into to Batman and superhero comics in general. And there are multiple paperback collections of the Batman Black and White stories. They're all pretty short. There are a wide variety of writers and artists. Not all of them are good. Some of them are kind of terrible, actually. But in general, the Batman Black and White stories are a great introduction to Batman and to superhero comics in general. I would recommend those as well. So, Leonard Euler 1. Steve, are there any movies that you think have been profoundly influential to the movie business in general? I mean, not just widely regarded as good, but movies that you can clearly see as the inspiration for certain visuals, effects, etc. in later movies, but you find to be just awful? The one that comes to mind immediately is The Matrix. And I don't necessarily think that The Matrix is truly like just irredeemably awful, but it's not nearly as good. I mean, not nearly as good as its ardent fans say it is. I really don't think it's a good movie. I think it's a good quality cheese movie. I think it's a so bad it's good movie. It's an entertainingly shitty movie. But undeniably it had a huge influence on the visual style, the editing style, the special effects of movies that have been released since. It was a hugely influential, very hip, very cool movie that a lot of filmmakers imitated in the years that followed, running right up to today. Another example, again, for me, would be the Lord of the Rings movies, which I'm not impressed by at all. I find the Lord of the Rings to be just incredibly boring and ponderous and pretentious, and just there's no reason for me to ever watch that any of that again. But incredibly influential, and huge commercial success, and incredibly influential on cinema, particularly American cinema, since its release. So those would be two examples for me. Obviously, lots of people think The Matrix is great. Lots of people think Lord of the Rings movies were great, but I don't. That's either thunder, which follows a bolt of lightning, or that is the sound of angry, infuriated, bloodthirsty, seeking revenge J.R.R. Tolkien fans thundering toward my position right now because I dared to once again talk shit about the Lord of the Rings. I hope it's not that second one. I hope that it's the first one, and that it means that it's now time for
The lightning round. Rapid fire questions. Glib and adequate answers.
Alex Richardson, rapid fire round. Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees? Freddy Krueger. Radical Bacon, what's Audie's favorite toy? Feathers on a stick? Nip? Boxes? The hearts of her enemies? I got it right here. This is her favorite toy. This thing right here. This is it. It used to have feathers on the end, but the feathers are gone because she has killed them. She kills this thing about 5 or 6 times a day at least. It's by far her favorite toy. In fact, I'm surprised that she's not playing with it right now. She's only not playing with it right now because she's laying on the couch over here outside of frame staring at me, wondering what the fuck I'm doing with her favorite toy. So, there you go. Lewis NG 114. If you have the ability to secretly replace every gun in the world with something, what would you replace them with and why? Self-esteem. Because I think it would be a much safer world that way. The Bible Reloaded. Steve, how do you keep your beard so goddamn pristine? It is the perfect balance of both manly and groomed. Well, the way you do it is you wash it regularly with water and soap, and then you let it grow, but you trim it, but you don't make a fucking art project out of it. You just trim it to keep it looking neat and nice. You don't fucking try to do anything too creative with it. That's the key. Sepia Siren, how would you respond to the quip that a low-paying job like, say, Walmart clerk wasn't supposed to be a career and thus not deserving of cost of living pay hikes? Is this an appropriate response? Do I have to say anything? Can I just go like that? I believe if a person works a job full-time, they should at least make enough from that job to earn a living. But call me crazy. Patrick Dodds, Steve, what do you consider the perfect TV show? I'm meaning a show that ignored the beckoning of Fonzie's shark. To be fair, it should be a show that has completed its run rather than a show that is still presently on the air and still has the opportunity to Seinfeld it. My personal pick would be Angel. My pick would be the BBC original version of The Office, the Ricky Gervais, Stephen Merchant Office. To me, that is just perfect. It's a perfect object. I don't think you could ever improve upon it. I love it. That will definitely be my pick. Logical Cake. What is your go-to donut at Dunkin' Donuts or whatever your donut shop of choice is? A chocolate cream fill. I love those fucking things. Also, chocolate with custard filling is good too, but a chocolate cream filled donut is just, god damn it. And they're good every place. It doesn't matter if you get them at Dunkin' or at like your local grocery store or out of a Krispy Kreme box. A chocolate cream filled donut to me is just, you can't. How do you fuck that up? Super Steelers fan 100. Hey Steve, lightning round part 3. Okay, here's some more that we're going to take as they come, one at a time. So, never eat meat or never drink again. If I had to pick, I would say never drink again. I go for many weeks and months without drinking anyway. Beef jerky or turkey jerky? I would go beef jerky. I like turkey jerky, but if I can only have one, it's going to be beef jerky. Favorite steakhouse? You know, there's I was trying to think one and I can't think of one. I don't know. I guess I don't have a favorite steakhouse. What's the place around here? See, I don't know. There's a place around here that has decent steaks. That it's been so long since I've been to it, I can't even think of its fucking name. I remember it's one of those sort of Western kind of themed places that has like, you know, shelled peanuts on the floor. I don't know, but a decent steak. And if Pastafarianism became a U.S. Census religion, would you be touched by his noodly appendage? No, because it's a satire religion, and I wouldn't claim to actually be a member of a fake religion. But I do think it's kind of funny that other people do. KP Kirkus, I guess I should say. KP Kirkus. Lightning round question. When are you going to admit that Wrestling with Wrestling is pretty much a 2-hour show? Fuck you. It's a 90-minute show. We've never gone 2 hours. At least I don't think we have. It's a 90-minute show. So I will admit that from now on. It's not an hour show, it's a 90-minute show. So there, are you happy? Okay, I'm back over here now. So that's the end of the questions. Before I get out of here, I want to do a shout out as always. And the shout out this week actually goes to a channel that is not run by an atheist and not devoted to science content. It's actually a channel run by a Christian. I believe this is only the second time that I have given a shout out to a Christian channel. And the channel that gets the shout out this week is my pal Losoyo. I love Losoyo's Sunday Night Sinners and Saints show. It's a Google Hangout panel show that he does every week. I was actually fortunate enough to be on it last week, and it's up on his channel now if you want to watch it. It was a long show. It was over 2 hours. It was me and Serious Mind and Rational Roundtable and Losoyo himself and a couple of other guys. And we just had a great time, an awesome discussion about religion and government and the proper place of religion and law and government and representative government and legislation and what constitutes a religious argument. Is all kinds of stuff that if you're interested in that sort of thing, you will find very interesting. And I had a great time, and I look forward to being invited back at some point in the future and being a panelist yet again on Sunday Night Sinners and Saints. And it's on Losoyo's YouTube channel. He's a good dude. He's a Christian, but he's not one of the crazy ones, you know. He's a relatively reasonable, rational fellow, and a good dude, a good guy to hang out with, a good laugh. And I like I say, I had a great time on his show, and he deserves the shout out. And if you're like me, whether you're an atheist or a theist or whatever, if you enjoy watching people be friendly and have fun and enjoy each other's company and have a good conversation about religion or politics or pop culture or whatever, it's definitely something you should check out. Check out the Sunday Night Sinners and Saints show on Losoyo's YouTube channel. Highly recommended from me. And if you start watching regularly, who knows, maybe you'll see my ass on there every once in a while. So that's it for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back again next time to do this all over again, provided, of course, that you ask me some questions. Because, of course, for me to do this, you have to ask. So leave a comment on this video, the one you're watching this very moment. Leave a comment asking me your question for next time. Ask me anything about anything. No topic is off limits. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can next week. So until then, take care. Have a good one. I'll see you.